I'm Renaya, welcoming all. If you enjoyed today's material, please hit the like button as it helps with content creation. And with that, let's begin. Alright, so our first witness comes from Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to start at verse 3. And it says, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light." Now, all I want you to do at this point is notice the order. That when the Most High's creative work begins, there's light involved. Now, I know some people may say that, okay, darkness came before, and this is true. But I want you to see the pattern that's established in the next couple of verses, to see whether we can draw something and extrapolate how the Most High wants us to view a day. And this is important because we're trying to get back to whether our day, whether the new year starts at sunrise. So let's go for it. We look at the next verse, verse 4. It says, "And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness." So you have the light first, and then the darkness. We go to verse 5a, and it says, "And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night." Now notice that, okay, the darkness was before, but in both of these instances, he is referring to the light portion before the night. And then this is where we need to catch it all together. In verse 5, portion B, "And the evening and the morning were, or was, the first day." Now, what I did was I took this separate, the words evening and morning. Now, of course, I put evening because in green because it's a mixture between the morning, the yellow, and the darkness, the blue. And that's what an evening is. It's a transition. But if we expect it, even in the biblical records, or I should say the biblical dictionaries, namely the Strong's, that's what most people look up first, then you find out when you get to the primitive root, and I choose primitive root, which is in PR on the screen, because that's the most foundational word. People may use the other words, but they have the vowel points that are associated with Yiddish attached to them. The original Hebrew had no vowel point, so it's best to go back to the very foundation if you're going to make a determination of the breadth and width of a word. But when I did that for both evening and morning, this is what popped up. Intermix for evening, and for morning to inspect. And both of these words at the very top. And when you put it together, intermix to inspect. Okay, so in code almost, it's telling me that I need to check out which intermix I am talking about. And then I did that. I went to another dictionary, the BDB definition, and then it said exchange of beginning of day. Like, hold on. Okay, so the evening that we're typically used to is the beginning of night. But this right here is clearly telling us, when you dig us a little bit into the scholar's definition of these words, the exchange of beginning of day. That is key. Verse 14, "And God said, let there be lights in the firmament to divide the day from the night." So again, we have that whole nuance of the light coming before the darkness. When we go a little bit farther, in verse 16a, it says, "And God made the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night." And notice this continued pattern. Light, and then darkness. Light, then darkness. And then this one, verse 19. I want to introduce this as well because there's a little bit more to this morning than meets the eye. This morning can also mean, besides the coming of day, the exchange of the coming of sunrise when combined with evening. And that's powerful. The interchangeability of the light and also of the sun are all summarized when you look deeper into the definition, which are hidden from most people if they stop at just the surface level, what these translators gave us. Alright, so going further. Our second witness comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls, Fragment 4Q394-3-7I, and looking at lines 19 through 21, going forth without inquiry about Wednesday New Year. If you notice what it says, the 28th of the 12th month, Sabbath. The first is Sabbath, and the second day and the third are to be added to it, and the year is complete, 364 days. Now, it talks about the first, second, and third, but by default, you can infer from these days that it's the 12th month. The next day over will be the first month, and that's the beginning of the new year, which will be the 4th day, which corresponds to our Wednesday. So again, we are aligning this. This answers the Wednesday part at least. But now we need to find out more in depth whether the sunrise is relevant. And we'll prove more with the 4th day as well, of Wednesday, as we go along in our further witnesses. Alright, so our third witness comes from BEDAL of the Book of Remembrance. And I know I mentioned at the very beginning of this series that we would be delving into the Book of Remembrance because it brings a lot forth that has been hidden. And this is, I think, the very first time, true time, that we're going to examine a bunch of these verses. So if we look at chapter 13, this is a key pivotal chapter in regards to the calendar. Now, I want you to be familiar with some of the terminologies at the very top, because this is a different language, and therefore you have different terminologies that are referring to the same being. So Mosai, which equals, literally from the text, it means God who goes out with me. And it's the same as with Emmanuel, God with me, that particular vibe. And Shadashel equals renewal of God, or pretty much springtime. That's the equivalent of it. So just reading that particular passage, and Moshe replied, "Now then I say to you, that beginning with the first day of the season of renewal, which you have named Shadashel, you shall mark the first day of the year. And there shall be 4 seasons, and a season shall have 12 weeks, and a week shall have 7 days, to mark the 7 days of creation." So let's dissect this. So first thing that should be eliminated immediately is, what season does the year begin in? Springtime is the season of renewal. It marks the new year. So this whole garbage about starting the year in the dead of winter should be tossed out immediately. If you're still clinging on to the Gentiles' ways, it makes no sense. Where Israel has been, we have been separated from nature in these cities that we live in, and therefore we are out of tune with the order that the Most High has created. But if you are an agrarian society, winter is the death season, and then you're going to start up again when the new rains come and the Most High provides conditions that are conducive for planting. Alright, the next thing we should draw from this is that 4 seasons exist. And this is important in times past, because certain cultures just said that the winter season was not existent. So they only had 3 seasons. So this rectifies this for those who are coming to a knowledge of the books of remembrance at any point in time. So 4 seasons. In times before, it may have been problematic. But in these modern times, I think there is no problem with this. Alright, and so let's go to the next portion. And this may be the first one that creates problems for people. A season shall have 12 weeks, and a week shall have 7 days. Okay, so if we just do a little bit of simple math, 4 seasons times 12 weeks per season times 7 days a week, we get 336 days. Okay, so the Gregorian calendar has 365.2425 days. The Enochian calendar has 364. The Lunar calendar has 354 days per year. So is this something new? How does this line up? How is this justification for Wednesday's sunrise heralding the new year? It makes no sense if we stop at the surface level. But let's examine this. And a season shall have 12 weeks, and a week shall have 7 days. So this is really ingenious when you break it down. Now you have to put together other records. If you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, you know that a week starts, according to what we saw earlier, on a Wednesday. Now, by definition, this says that the season has 12 weeks, and that a week is defined by 7 days. So if it's a partial week, then it's no longer included in being a week. And so what do we have? If you look at each one of those in Roman numerals for each season, you have a 12 count. And then you have a partial fragment of a week at the very beginning and a partial fragment at the very end, making up a 13th week if you combine them. But because this is defined by 7 days going straight in a row, you only have 12 weeks per season. Now, what does this mean? it eliminates two things. First, there's no Sunday beginning. If you start the new year on a Sunday, that means you have 13 weeks because it goes straight forward. 4 days at the beginning and the 3 days at the end of the season, they combine to create another week. So that eliminates that theory. And I know many people will fight tooth and nail for that particular position. But this book of BEDAL, that comes from the book of Remembrance, that is from Enoch, says otherwise. This also eliminates the whole idea of intercalating another week to match it up with the Gregorian or Julian calendar. Because if you introduce a week at any point, then you no longer have 12 weeks. You have a 13th week. So in one move, the different controversies that are coming up about this calendar are removed immediately because it says 12 weeks and then divided by 7 days a week going forward. The Most High knows how men think. And if you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, you realize that the priests started their rotations on the Sabbath. So that could create some confusion as well. But that is eliminated as well. If you look at verse 82, it states, "And the seventh day of each week shall be a day of rest, which is called the Sabbath." Verse 89, "And the first day of your year is not a Sabbath." So both ways, you eliminate the Sunday, eliminate the intercalation, you eliminate the Sabbath, pointed toward a day in between. Okay, so our fourth witness is also from BEDAL of the Book of Remembrance from chapter 13, more on Enoch and his interactions. So this record from him is one that has Yahsakat, which is Adam, and I'll just read it like that in text, and Kava, which is Eve. You have Petach, which is equal to Mount Zion, which is equal to portal. And with this is a little aside. Check out Isaiah 14:13, where it talks about the sides of the north. Look up the word north and see what it means in the Strong Concordance. And I think it's going to blow you away because it's matching up right here. But anyway, going back and getting back on topic, verse 63 reads, "And the first day of the year shall fall on the fourth day of the week, because on that day of the week Adam and Eve passed through the oaks of Atach to return to Eden." Alright, so we have a direct declaration. The fourth day of the week, which is the middle of the week, which corresponds to our Wednesday, is the day that is beginning of the year. Now, it's up to an individual at this point whether you're going to reject it or accept it. But there it is. There's a record that clearly states no veering to the left or the right, but staying straight in the middle pathway, in the middle of the week. Okay? So I want to point this out as well. Now, I do have a little picture of the book right here on the side. So if you want to check it out, I do recommend getting all the books of remembrance. There's a series of them. They are very informative. And I think anyone who is scholastic or who has a scholarly mindset would want to check it out. But going back, fourth day equal to Wednesday equals the creation of luminaries. Hence that the Messiah, who is talked about as in John chapter 1, 4-5 as being the light of the world, and that the darkness comprehends it not. It is dominant over the darkness. It comes first in position. You then have Daniel 9:27, where it talks about Messiah being in the midst, in the middle of the week, middle of time, if you will, and that is shown to be fulfilled, like him ending the abomination, the sacrifices, in Matthew chapter 27, verse 50-51, showing that that system of sacrifice was over. He came in the midst of time, and now this is a yearly remembrance of what he's done, a new creation each year. And it's a beautiful picture when you grasp what's written into this calendar itself. Okay, so let's go on to our fifth witness, which also comes from the BEDAL of the Book of Remembrance in chapter 13 as well. And this one may upset some people, but we gotta come forth with this because this is truth that can no longer just be waved away. People look for direct quotes. Well, here we go. The Most High has preserved this, which is what he said in Malachi chapter 3, verse 16, that he had a book of remembrance and that he would preserve them. Let's go. Verse 81. "And now, my son, you must divide the days of man according to this manner. The rising sun must be the beginning of your day, but the setting sun begins the day for those who work in darkness. And the course of the sun is to guide you in all manners of the division of days. And the wicked will use the moon, which they perceive to rule over their deeds done in the darkness. So let's go over this. This particular exchange of the coming of the sunrise begins the day for the righteous. And I have a picture of Pierce Rock, Quebec, Canada before sunrise. Now, as I transition to sunset, I want you to see how that transition this evening is very much the same in both of them, and that we have to inquire about which evening is happening, as the definition has pointed us to, that the Most High has set up for us to inquire and to dig deep in and to find an answer to. And going on further in that verse, but the setting sun begins the day for those who are wicked. Now, look at this. When we, most of us being in Christianity, were in that aspect, that phase in our walk, we had no problem with sunrise is the day. Shoot, it was freaking Sunday worship of the sun. So it was ludicrous to think, okay, the nighttime. But now that we have dug deeper, when we get on the opposite side, we're now entrapped with thinking that, oh, we gotta do things at nighttime, which is opposite to everything in nature, to our body, to when we want to go to work. That's the downtime. That's where we're relaxing, reclining. It's night time. It's time to catch some seeds. And it's the tricky of the wicked. If we remember, in Job, it said the wicked have been given the earth. The faces of the judges have been covered. Their faces have been covered, and they are misleading everybody. On whichever side you're going to be going some opposite way unless you decide to investigate and study for yourself. So, like I said, observe that picture right there. It looks very similar to the sunrise, and it's an evening out between the light and the darkness. And check this out. The sun guides the righteous in all manners of the division of days. And that's exactly what we see in Jubilees chapter 2, verse 9 as well, which reads, and God appointed the sun to be a great sign of the earth for days, and for Sabbaths, and for months, and for feasts, and for years, and for Sabbaths of years, and for jubilees, and for all seasons of the years. Straightforth, we have two witnesses there. Two witnesses that were cast aside and told to be non-canonical to us. Finally, we look at what the Messiah said in John chapter 3, verse 19 to 21. He told us as well, he warned us, and this is the condemnation. The light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God. And this is represented in the physical showing of time as well. We come into the light. We stop being in the dark, practicing things that are in the dark. It's a visual aid for our faith. And to go otherwise shows that we would rather be in the darkness, in ignorance, than to come into the marvelous truth that the Most High has put forth before us. So, one final note with all of this. The wicked only perceive the moon to rule over the deeds they do in the dark. Although the Most High said this about the fourth day, that it was good. And how could it be opposite? He made everything with its role, its purpose involved. And sure, the intention of man, their heart will condemn them, but it's still nothing inherently evil. Most High made two witnesses. He told us to have 2 or 3 witnesses. He created 2 witnesses, and then, if you will, he created stars in the heavens as well to be as tertiary, quaternary witnesses, on and on and on and on. So we're without excuse as far as this alignment is concerned. So I know the question beginning was, does a Wednesday sunrise always herald a new year? Let's examine all the facts that we've drawn together. From our first witness, we received that Moses established a pattern of light before dark continually. That may be a weak point for you, and so we moved on. Next, we saw in our second witness that the Essenes recorded that the last day of the 12th month falls on a 3rd day, which means that the first day of the new year will start on the 4th day, on Wednesday. Third, Enoch illuminates the 1st and 7th days of the week as being year starters, and he also demolishes the idea that we can intercalate a particular month, a particular year, because then you no longer have 12 weeks to the season. Fourth, Enoch states plainly that the 4th day is the first day of the year. There's no skirming around this, like it's the 4th day. So you either reject it, receive it, but it's your choice. Finally, Enoch notified us that the wicked start their day at sunset, and that would include their new year too. So this right here is enough that if anyone was on the fence, they now have a certainty that is unshakable on when does a new year begin. And remember, the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. Shalom.